VikesNow. I am Dustin Baker. This is the Week 10 edition of Jaguars and Vikings. They play down in Florida. I have my lifelong friend Sal Spice on the show. We're gonna go through some of this. How you doing, Sal?
Hi, Dustin. I'm great. How are you?
Not bad. Tell me about before we jump in. We're talking about storylines today, but I want to
Yes.
know two things before we get into that. General reaction to what I called a greasy win over the Colts. How did you feel about that?
Well, I'll tell you, when I was sitting there, it was pretty agonizing. I kept looking up at the clock and seeing the time of possession discrepancy, the huge, tremendous difference. I think at one point I looked and it was like 16-minute difference or something. That
Hmm.
like the Colts had 4 minutes and the Vikings had like 20.
Hmm.
And I remember just thinking, what the hell is going on here? Why is this the score? And it was just greasy, like you said, it was very slow. And then I was concerned going into the half because it was just like one of those scripts that we've seen before. All of a
Hmm.
sudden, there's all these turnovers. All of a sudden, they can't kick even from 31 yards. And it just looked like it's going to be one of those days where they're playing a team who is not even playing to their own capabilities and they're still going to blow it. But I was very impressed with the changes that were made at halftime, that Sam Darnold was able to shake off those mistakes and come back and have the 3 touchdowns, get Jordan Addison involved. I loved how they got Cam Akers in the game plan. And so I'm feeling very good about it now.
Yeah, I'd like to point out that so far this season, the undefeated Chiefs, they often win this way. And we're all like, God, that's gritty. And when the Vikings do it, we're kind of like, I don't know, are they for real? So certainly the Chiefs are for real. I think the Vikings are a playoff contender for sure. But this is how some of those wins go, and that's why I call it greasy. The other thing I want to get to before storylines is the trade deadline. Some wanted the Vikings to maybe make one more move. They had already made two, which is a lot heading into a
Mm-hmm.
trade deadline. So it was silence. It was a nothing burger on the deadline day. Did you want them to do anything else? Were you disappointed, or was the status quo a-okay by you? I lost her. Well, I, for one, when it came to the trade deadline, I kind of just acknowledge that two trades within a cycle is more than reasonable. They welcomed back Cam Akers for a second straight year. I joked on Twitter this week that starting to look at the calendar next year to figure out when they'll trade for him again. Maybe they'll just re-sign him and make this thing easy. I was fine with the Akers deal, and then the Cam Robinson deal I didn't expect. But they did indeed send a what will probably turn into a fourth rounder with a compensatory bet hedge for that, we think, if he walks after 10 games. In terms of getting rid of the first rounder to make this team even better, the 2025 first rounder, the only guy that I would have had an endorsement there would have been Dexter Lawrence, and I think his availability as a Viking wasn't really a real thing, and therefore sending a first rounder somewhere else was not applicable. Other than that, retaining the first rounder, in my mind, was probably the best thing to do so we can fully prepare for the JJ McCarthy era. All right, Sal Spice is back. I don't know if we have her audio yet. She's working on it. And then there was also Jeffrey Simmons, who would have been somewhat enticing from the Titans, who are bottom feeding with the Vikings play here in about, what, 9 days. That I would have entertained selling the first rounder for him because he's only 27. Defensive tackles can play longer than running backs, for example. And then you'd be at, you know, Jeffrey Simmons for the next, hopefully, 3 to 5 years. But that was moot too because I don't think he was for sale. And so the Vikings just stayed put. Sal, are you back with your audio?
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're back.
Oh, oh, what the fuck? Okay, I'm sorry.
No, I gave the listeners my synopsis of the trade deadline. Let's hear yours.
Okay, technical difficulties there. So no, I was not surprised at all. I didn't think that they didn't have much to work with. I didn't think that there was going to be anything most likely out there that was going to be in their price range that was going to make a big enough difference for them. And after seeing the day after it wrapped up, there weren't really any of those names that we were really talking about, the rumors, the ones that we were really excited about.
Mhm.
They didn't end up being on the market anyway. So I'm completely fine with it.
Yep, they notably retained their first rounder, which I don't think necessarily was for sale, but if they, in theory, said, you know what, we're a true blue Super Bowl contender, they could have sold that for impact player and a guaranteed commodity, but that was a moot point. All right, so to jump into these storylines, now that our technical things are figured out, I asked you to bring, so we're at the season's halfway point after Monday Night Football. That was the line in the sand that said, hey, the regular season's half over. The Vikings are 6-2 at that point. I don't know if you have these in order, but I want to hear, starting with one of them, the top storyline you're monitoring for these Vikings for, is it the next 9 games?
Well, the top storyline for now is going to be what is going on with special teams and
Hmm.
these players that they have had to now work in because of the injuries and the short-term IR additions in Will the Thrill and the punter and these guys that they've gotten to work in. How is the chemistry going to be? I'm very relieved that this is happening now in this 3 game stretch where it looks like they're going to be playing 3 backup quarterbacks in a row on the road. That's, I think, the best scenario we could ask for in
Hmm.
working these kinks out, because I hope that these games, particular this game, is not going to go down to a kick and win situation. So but going forward in December, I really hope that this is worked out and everybody's back, because that's when we're really going to need those clutch kicks.
And I think that's why Reichard was put on IR. We already know that no matter what, this front office and this coaching staff is really conservative, hesitant, tentative about injuries. And it really sounded like Reichard hit the shelf just in case, because we want him here for 10 years, not like, have something catastrophic. Let me ask you this about Parker Romo, who we know somewhat well because we thought he was the kicking solution in March until they drafted Reichard. Is it more likely that Romo is also a solid baller, or is it more likely that we're like, oh God, at about 2 p.m. Central Time this Sunday? Which is a more likely outcome?
Oh man, if we're only looking towards Sunday, then I think I'll say, just based on the way that this season has been going, I'll say he will start out as a baller.
Okay.
He'll start out great. And I hope that it continues that way. But I don't think the trend of this season has been like your mind has been blown and then you come
Hmm.
back down to earth. So I think
Yeah.
we'll stay that way.
Yeah. I think that Romo, I don't know if anybody as a rookie can be as good as Reichard, and Romo's not a rookie. He just hasn't played in the NFL yet. I think he came on board as an undrafted free agent last year. Um, I think that the Vikings are mathematically and historically due for kicking prosperity. Therefore, it would be a very Vikings thing to be like, hey, we finally got two. Now we got to pick between one of
Right.
them, right? And I want to
Right.
remind our viewers that John Parker Romo isn't just some schmuck who's going to come in and chip 35-yard field goals. The guy can hit from 60. We saw
Hmm.
that in training camp. And then he had some old YouTube stuff where the guy was hitting from 70. So it's not like we're getting just some rink-a-dink rental. The guy, in theory, could have been the Viking kicking solution. So I'm optimistic that he's good.
Why do you think then, because there has been so many kicker
Hmm.
injuries this season, why do you think hasn't gotten a job elsewhere?
Well, he's a relative unknown, and the Viking, like, let's see, I think he was with the Lions as an undrafted free agent. So I think he's just been bested by two better kickers in, junior battles or competitions. And I think when shit hits the fan for like the Giants twice now with Greg Joseph and Graham Gano, I think you want to go to a more reliable commodity. And right now, that's kind of slim pickings if you're the Vikings. So I'm confident or I'm content that they signed Romo because they evidently like what they saw from him this spring and summer.
Hmm.
And that gives me that gives me excitement that he can be the real deal. My I guess I'm gonna work my way up on these to top storylines. My third one, I guess, would be PJ Hawkinson. Does he acclimate to the offense like as soon as this Sunday to make the offense borderline elite? That's what I want to know. He had a couple sweet catches against the Colts, but it was just Josh Oliver's show. Nobody saw coming. So we've kind of, especially at 5-0, we're daydreaming about how good things can get when Hawkinson gets back. And he should be the guy that single-handedly allows for Jordan Addison to cook because you have to account for Hawkinson. When he's not on the field, you don't have to do much to contain Johnny Munt and Josh Oliver. So one of my top storylines is the Hawkinsonization of this offense. When does it happen and does it make it so that we're like, holy shit, this is the guy we were waiting for? What is
I did
your yeah?
I did like it that they got him involved right away.
Yeah.
They didn't just sprinkle him in and then take him out for the almost the rest of the game. They had him in actively in several plays, and they were targeting him early and often. So I thought that was great because of course you're concerned he hasn't played in almost a year. He's never played with Sam Darnold. Is this going to take a while for them to get up to speed and sync? So I liked it that they just went for that right off the bat.
And he also, I think it was in third quarter, he also took another gross hit. Like you're like, oh God, that looked like the one that knocked him out. It wasn't quite as dirty, but it like got him right at the knees.
Yes.
I think we all
Yeah.
kind of gasped.
Did they
Uh,
boo for that too? I think.
yeah, yeah. Like
Yep.
when you look back on it, it was nowhere near like Kirby Joseph's, but just because in like his first hour and a half back on the job, he got hit kind of toward, he got tackled towards the knees. It was like, oh boy, but he bounced right back up and all is well. What's your next storyline?
Yes. I think I'm going to go with the Jordan Addison piece. You know, there had been the rumblings that he was unhappy. Then we all dismissed it as no, that's actually his hashtag. That's his branding. Is the free three. And then he did get involved more this game. It seemed like KOC, made the effort, like made the sure, like, hey, I'm getting you in this game. And then after, gave him the game ball and stuff. However, we've still got Jordan Addison's dad chirping on Twitter about Sam Darnold. And so that to me is concerning because why are athletes' dads doing this anyways? Who was the other dad that did this?
Baker, Odell Beckham's dad.
Odell Beckham. Was it him? No Vikings dad ever?
No, I think
Tight end's dad.
I don't think
I'll
so.
look this up.
Notably, Odell Beckham dad basically it felt like he forced Baker Mayfield out of Cleveland, which is an
Right.
unholy mistake now.
Yes, and that's like I don't know. It's just come on, dads. So that's what's concerning me because it's like there's obviously I agreed. I was like, you know what? Yeah, we're reading too much into this with the hashtag and things like that because I said that a lot about Stephon Diggs. Like you guys are overreacting. Every single tweet is not about the Vikings, but then when you see what his dad has to say about Sam Darnold, then you wonder, okay, what are the phone conversations? What are the family dinner conversations? What are they going to be talking about at Thanksgiving? So I hope that continues to that fence continues to mend and maybe his dad, logs off for a couple of days.
Rolando Addison, if you want to follow him on Twitter, the way that I perceive wide receivers, I don't care if it's Diggs, Addison, any of them, is they are always going to operate everywhere, especially on social media, and their dads evidently, as if they are open 100% of the time. Now, in his dad's defense, Sam Darnold probably should have saw Addison on the play that he was referring to because it would have been a 60-yard touchdown. But you could probably keep those thoughts in your head. So anytime I see any like last night, Jamar Chase on the 2-point conversion, they asked him afterward, after he scored 3 touchdowns at 280 yards. He said, I'm always open. So I think that you will always have wide receivers who are bombastic because they absolutely believe that they're always open. And so long as that is their discontent that they're open, I think we'll be just fine. And Addison has to know that, you're playing next to Justin Jefferson. You're not going to be primary. And if he wants to get any deeper in his feelings, like this plan right now with Sam Darnold is kind of the patch over plan. Well, we got the other guy waiting who could probably help you cook even further.
Well, in their defense, too, I'm not knocking the wide receivers. I mean, they are good because this is their personality.
Yeah.
They do take these risks to get their head chopped off going for a ball because this is their personality, their ego, they're confident. You have to be successful at that position. It's just like, dad, log off. We don't need Sam knowing the dad's talking about him.
And then to circle back to, I want everybody to know once and for all that Free 3 on the Instagram was absolutely no semblance of cryptic blah 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 or him being upset. That's what his thing is. It's his LFG. So the Addison dad thing should be a separate concern than Free 3 because he's been saying that from the days in college, and that's just his thing. My next storyline, only because of paranoia from last year, is making sure there's no more regressive tendencies from the defense. We saw a 2-game lag against the Lions. Of course, that's going to happen because the Lions are so, like constructually sound. And then the Rams game was just gross. They rebounded nicely against the Colts. They ranked for week 9, #1 in EPA per play per defense, which was joyous and music to my ears. But because I was at the Bengals game last year and for no good reason, the defense stopped performing in the fourth quarter and never recovered. I have paranoia that that's going to happen again. And so my second most important storyline is ensuring that the defense stays at least good and hopefully like it is elite.
Yeah, I'm hoping that Blake Cashman coming back is going to be an extra boost for them. Have they said for sure that he's going to be
No,
back?
but he's trending exactly how one would to play. They're saying all the right things, and in the weeks before, it was always DNPs. And these are limited practices. I don't think that he'll be completely wiped off the injury report today, but I think he will play.
Okay, yeah, it seems like that's pretty much everyone's opinion on that. So it will be interesting to see when he comes back. Is he going to make this impact that we have been attributing this huge? We've been putting a lot on him of like, hey man, like this slump is because you're not here. So we'll see if it takes it back another level. But I was very impressed with their performance on Sunday as well. I feel like a fool that I was on here saying I was worried about Joe Flacco and I
Yeah.
was worried about the deep threat with their three wide receivers because there was nothing. I mean, Joe had all day back there,
Yeah.
but he couldn't make anything happen. So I hope that this will be the trend now. At least, I mean, through these 3 next games with these quarterbacks, they've got to put on dominant performances. These are the times if you're going to make mistakes, make them, but learn from them. So when we go into December, it's a wrap, you know.
Yeah, they got probably Mac Jones this weekend, then Will Levis or Mason Rudolph, then rookie Caleb Williams. So they got a feast in these 3 games because then it is Kyler, Kirk, who I will probably be decent in his return game. So they gotta go out there. I was just thinking of. Did you see that video yesterday or this morning with Kevin O'Connell, Anthony Richardson?
I did. I just saw it this
Did
morning.
that lead you to believe that those two had talked before, maybe in the lead up to the draft?
I think so. I think that they definitely have been in communication because I don't think you go up to somebody for the very first time and say, I mean, you say something similar, but it did
Mm-hmm.
seem like there was a little bit of a camaraderie there already, and you could see on Anthony's face it was really touching when they broke away and you saw the look on his face at KOC and how
Mm-hmm.
he seemed like so grateful for that.
You probably never heard any Colts coach say that shit to him.
No, and that he went out of his way to
Yeah.
go and say it to him, and because I'm sure it was a tough week, and you could tell he was touched, and I really appreciate that from KOC. That's the thing that's so different about him, I think, than not only other coach we've seen on
Yeah.
our team, but just in general, is that you can tell just he really is an empathetic guy who wants the best for these people and knows how to talk to them,
Yeah.
especially the younger ones.
Almost every Vikings coach during our fandom, minus Mike Tice, has been kind of prickly.
Mm-hmm.
Like certainly Zimmer, Leslie Frazier just kind of hard to know. Childress was a prick. And then Dennis Green was rough around the edges or at least controversial. And then Mike Tice was just kind of, aw shucks. But O'Connell is like probably the best genuine human being that you have in that coaching. The thing that I keep thinking about, I am absolutely enamored that JJ McCarthy is on this team and will be the quarterback of the future. But I keep thinking about like all of these quarterbacks that are being discarded. Like, man,
Yes.
if let's say in the alternative history we didn't draft JJ McCarthy, we'd be salivating right now about getting our hands on Bryce Young or Anthony Richardson so that
Yeah.
KOC could shape and mold them. It's a grand what if.
I
Um,
almost just want it to happen like, yeah, keep JJ, but then just have these little pet projects. Because I mean, I can't, like, I know it seems silly to feel bad for professional athletes. People are always like, well, what do you care? They're millionaires, but they're human beings. And I can't imagine what it's like to be touted your whole career. This is the path,
mhm.
or childhood, young adulthood. This is the path you're on. And you're on the biggest screen, biggest stage you can ever be on in life. And you just completely fail because everybody around you is a shit show and
Yeah.
doesn't support you and throw you under the bus. You're the problem for everything. Like think about a Christian Ponder. I think about him. It's like KOC probably could have fixed Christian Ponder.
Yeah, I think we just attach KLC to everybody and they'd be at least, a top 25 quarterback.
Yeah, every guy in that draft except Andy Dalton was terrible. Give them all to KOC. What are they doing?
Because of the way the Panthers didn't manage Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield well, the proof is absolutely in the pudding that they didn't know what to do with him. I
Mhm.
think that Bryce Young should wear a badge of honor that says, "Hey, the Panthers didn't believe in me. Come get me."
Yeah.
Like because like these are bona fide examples. Baker Mayfield statistically is like a top five quarterback. I don't know if anybody would put them in the top five. Darnold's playing at a top 10 clip. If I was a if I was from the Shanahan coaching tree, basically, I would find a way to go get Bryce Young because I bet you he's going to be good. All right, what's your final or top storyline for the rest of the season?
My duck storyline. Oh my gosh. I don't know. I don't have one.
Oh, I
It's
thought,
here.
did you
You
already
go
give
for
your three?
yours.
Okay.
You know I didn't, but I spaced.
My final one and the most important one because I spend a lot of time thinking about this is I want to see in these next 9 games if the Vikings have the oomph to morph into an actual Super Bowl contender. I think we all started to daydream and believe in the first 5 games. How could you not with the point differential and the way how dominant they were playing? Right now, I think that they realistically will finish about 11-6. That feels like a fair record. But I just don't know that they have the consistency to win it, like certainly the Chiefs do, and it feels like the damn Lions might. So what I am most interested to watch is to see if we get back to that mid-October feeling of like, holy shit, man, is this the year? Like everything's going so well. It'll rest mostly on the defense, because this version, the 2024 Vikings feel like a team that's going to have a blitzkrieg defense in order to get to the NFC Championship or win the Super Bowl. But right now, if I had to prognosticate it or bet it, I'd say, hey, in the wild card round, yeah, the Vikings can go beat the Falcons on the road. They might even stun the Eagles in Philadelphia or something like that. But I don't think they would get beyond the divisional round, which is more than fair in a season when you were supposed to finish 7-10 or 8-9. So my most important or influential storyline that I want to monitor is, do we get back to that supremacy in October where we were like, gosh, these guys are legitimately good.
I'm with you totally there. And I think that's if that's going to happen, it's going to be right now. And
Mm-hmm.
I hope that they have dominant wins over these 3 teams. I don't know if the scores are going to reflect them at the end because I think most likely, they're going to be taking the foot off the gas towards the end. That's just how it's going to go. But I hope that these are dominant performances in which we're like, almost like the Packers game where we're like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the score there kind of sucked at the end. That was a little closer than we would have liked, but this team dominated this game the entire time. If we're seeing not that, if we're seeing any losses in there, which I feel bad for saying, it's a road game, so it's always going to be tough. But if you are want to be in this conversation, you need to win these 3 games, and it needs to be at least somewhat convincing.
Yeah, I want to get back to Vikings football. You remember right before Jalen Naylor muffed the punt against the Packers. That
Yeah.
was, remember, it was 28-0. And I was telling my wife, like, this is dominance.
Yes.
And not that Jalen Naylor caused it or anything, but that was the last moment that I felt that feeling of a top 3 NFL team, which I'd only really felt for like a week or two because you had to see after 2-0 if they were real 3-0. So hopefully in these games, although nobody can be overlooked, that's kind of the point they get to. All right, I have the Vikings now that it's probably going to be Mac Jones. I think they're going to win 30-13, although the Vikings are really overdue to score 40 points in a game. They haven't done that 5 years against the Dolphins. What is your prediction? And although you dislike a score, attach like a point spread for me.
I went pretty high on my score prediction last. I think I'm going to break the 40 threshold. I'm going to put it out there into the universe.
Mm-hmm.
I said 41, and I think I'm going to do, I think maybe 17,
Okay.
only because I think it's going to be some garbage time plays where they're going to just kind of let it
I
go.
don't
But
think I've known you for
never,
4 years. I don't think I've ever heard you predict Vikings shellacking like that.
never. I never, ever, ever have. I always think it's going to be, at least somewhat close. And I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever said a 40 points either. But I think that this is the time where you take the opportunity to take this offense, try out some things maybe you've been saving, get some people involved more heavily than you have in the past, and see what works, and just shove it down their throat because they've had 2 interceptions this entire season.
Mm-hmm.
So Sam, just have a day.
Yeah, the Jaguars rank 32nd for defensive EPA per play, worst in the business. They usually play man coverage, which I don't know if they're going to be stupid enough to do that. And Justin Jefferson hasn't had a game with 150 yards yet this year. So it's all, to me, unless there's some vintage Vikings bullshit that happens, it feels like it's bubbling to the surface to be a pretty sweet game. We shall see. All right,
Yeah.
any closing arguments for the group?
No, I mean, though, I'm normally like, oh my God, backup quarterback. Oh my God. Oh my God, this is a trap game. But I don't feel it. I don't feel it. I hope I'm not eating my words later, but I think it's going to be a good one. I think we're going to have fun.
All right, and then when we talk next Friday, we will be at week 11, hopefully 7-2, with eyes on 8-2, and that'll be Titans week.
Yes. Okay. I won't have to make my apology then. I'm trying to think, when's my apology segment? I think I got 2 more weeks. I
Yeah,
got 2 more weeks.
sweet. All right, Sal, we'll talk to you in a week, okay?
Okay. Sounds good.
Later.
Bye.